keep it alive through these lines I write. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage, and I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares, nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio Show. Once again with your host Nick Bernabe here on UCY.TV. Thank you all for tuning in, and I'm really happy to be back with you. Sorry I didn't catch you guys on Wednesday. I was feeling a little under the weather. Even though the weather was nice, still wasn't feeling too well, so I had to take the day off. But we're back and ready tonight more than ever before. We're ready to go after what the hell is going on tonight, confront the mainstream propaganda. We're going to talk about censorship. We're going to talk about the recent attacks in Brussels. We're going to talk about the D.C. shoot, or whatever you want to call that crap that happened today over at the Capitol building. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff. We're going to be having an awesome panel. We're going to be bringing on our longtime co-host. Let's go ahead and start. I think our co-host is having a little technical difficulty over there in Minnesota. He's probably snowed in or something. I'm sure he'll be joining us. Anyway, let's first get to our panel. We've got the awesome Jake Anderson on the line. What's up, Jake?
Hello, Nick. How are you doing? I'm doing pretty swell here in Albuquerque.
I'm doing really well. I'm ready to tackle the topics at hand tonight. We were talking before the show, and you said you wanted to talk about croutons a little bit.
Yeah. I think, everyone loves a salad, and we all talk about a salad, but I think we really need to acknowledge the role of croutons in this fruit salad of democracy.
There you go. So we got our croutons out of the way. We're going to maybe continue that if we run out of stuff to talk about at the end of the show, which is highly unlikely because we've been running out of time, not stuff to talk about, and that's why we're thinking about and getting ready to move into a 2-hour-long show. So I'm really excited about that, and we're going to be mixing it up a little bit. I know everyone gets tired of hearing me talk for an hour, so we're going to be doing an hour long of like a regular show, and then we're going to try to get some musicians and poets and artists on the line, and then we're going to be getting more and more guests. We're going to be trying to have a special guest every show once we shift over to 2 hours. Right now it's really hard because with the panel that we already have, it's already like we're already maxing out with speaking time with the time that we have with 1 hour. So with 2, hopefully we can get a lot more things covered, a lot more ground, maybe some more positive stuff, broaden out the spectrum here. And so anyway, with that being said, let me get the rest of our panel introduced. We've also got on the line the amazing Claire Bernish. What's up, Claire?
Not too much. This has been an interesting day, to say the least.
I'm feeling like Oprah right now. I want to just start giving away free stuff to everyone on the panel. You get a war. Jake gets a war. Manny, I think Manny's on the line. Manny, you get a war too. What's up, Manny?
What's up there? You forgot to mention activists, by the way. But I won't take it personal, okay?
Definitely. Well, I definitely want to get more activists on our show, and and because, man, there's so many things going on, and we lose sight of the big picture. I think many times, right? Especially right now, it's so hard to balance everything that's going on with this huge, this. I was hanging out with my grandma yesterday, and she's probably getting up to her early to mid 80s, and she was telling me, she was like, "This is the craziest election that I've ever lived through," and she's been through a lot of stuff, and so that's why it's so tricky right now to try to not lose sight of all the things going on while at the same time dealing with this crazy election stuff. And I remember, like, plain as day, that the little girl back in 2012, when I don't know if you guys remember seeing this viral video, but the little girl that started crying, and she's like, "I'm tired of hearing about Barack Obama and Mitt Romney," and she was like crying about it, man, and it was like so true, because all the ads on TV and it's all the shit that everyone's talking about, and we're talking about it too, and yeah, we have a different message, and we're pushing back against this crazy fascist stuff coming out of Trump, and this crazy warmongering coming out of Hillary Clinton, and all the other crap that's going on in between. And so it's really, a task to try to balance that out between what's going on with that and what's going on with everything else that's happening around the world. And that's why, that's one of the big reasons why we need a 2-hour show, so we can really confront the topics of today that are really happening, and then at the same time really keep everything in focus, and keep a broader perspective here with all the other stuff going on, and all the issues that people are dealing with, and all the fights that are going on, because there's everywhere you look, every aspect of the world, every country, every issue, there's a fight going on, and it's that's what we're trying to do here, is bring a voice to the people that may be voiceless out there. And so yeah, what's up, Manny?
Talking about fights, before you go all crazy, man, I almost got arrested this weekend. We were down there in Temecula, California. Those Trump protesters, man, there's a lot of hate, dude. I mean, first it was Murrieta, where the buses were coming. The same people, the Tea Party people were there. The same damn people that started all that chaos. I'm sure you remember Murrieta, when the buses came in, the refugee kids, stuff like that. I mean, it's just like, man, they called me everything except a choir boy. I mean, I'm like, wow, what the hell's going on with these people, And here I had just basically gone off of a big protest down at the border. That was a beautiful thing. The two Californias met, man, from Los Angeles into the border right there by Imperial Beach, on that side, and then the San Quintin people marching all the way into different cities until they got to Tijuana. I mean, it was tired, the marches. I mean, it's tiresome, and all that. But it's a blessing that I'm 100% again. I'm fired up again and stuff like that. Obviously you see my cover. I mean, these immigration officers staring me down and stuff like that. The immigration system sucks. And if it sucks right now, I mean, when you're seeing 2 layers of steel fence, there's already 2 layers, and Donald Trump wants to create a 3rd layer, stuff like that. And so, man, I was just chanting a lot of stuff down there in a place called the Pond, the Pond Park in Temecula, California. And one of my chants that they didn't like is, "Hey, hey, ho, ho, that Donald's got to go." So you can imagine all that war down there with the Donald Trump people and all that. So much hate,
Yeah, man, and you're right. The immigration system here is broken, and first of all, that needs to be fixed, and all this talk about comprehensive immigration reform and all this stuff. I mean, for the most part, these guys are barely scratching the surface with the issues that are really, facing people in other countries, and understanding why it is that people from Central America and from Mexico and from Latin America are trying to get out and trying to get over here, and why is it that people in Syria and Libya and Northern Africa and the Middle East are trying to get out and to try to get into Europe and to try to get over here. Well, these are the issues we need to be talking about. That's one of my biggest issues with Trump, and we're going to talk about Hillary too, because she ties into this as well. So first I want to talk about how, Trump is basically selling a message of distraction. He's basically selling us a superficial political platform that's saying that, hey, look, we're going to ban Muslims from coming to the United States to keep you safe. And two, we're going to ban Latinos from coming to the United States to keep you economically safe. And so both of those things that he's selling, first of all, it's based on fear, it's based on anger, but the reason why it's resonating is that it comes from a place where the average middle-class American is having insecurities about, what it is that, why are they living paycheck to paycheck all of a sudden when it was only 15 years ago when they were living okay and they had a high standard of living, and people are wondering, well, what the hell happened? And since there's especially with the older middle class, the people have such a low amount of information that they don't bother digging deeper and looking at why is it that we have a economy that is wrecked? Why is it that we have jobs leaving the United States? Why is it that there's a bunch of Muslims trying to get into the country? And why is it that there's a bunch of people from Latin America trying to get out and trying to get in? Well, Trump doesn't bother looking at any of that stuff. He's just selling based on this superficial platform of fear, and he's tapping into the insecurities that people have. So First of all, let's talk a little bit on the economic end of things, why people are trying to get out of Mexico, and why are people trying to get out of Latin America? Manny, what is it that is driving people out of those places?
Well, it's basically just the government, the government of the United States is giving the government of Mexico a lot of money to oppress their people, banging them and stuff like that. There was a lot of blood. There was a lot of these workers that got to Tijuana bloody and stuff like that. It's kind of sad when they're making, $8 a day and they're asking for more, $1 an hour. It's just they can have, Driscoll's can have 10 workers for the price of one here and stuff like that. And all they want is, to have, fair wages. They want water. They want a decent restroom, decent housing. And it's the same thing as the same thing that was going here in the United States, except now Driscoll's has a place on the other side of the border because they don't have to pay taxes here and they can exploit the people. Now, one of the things that we are asking for security with Driscoll, and they don't understand, some of our women our sisters out there are being raped, are being harassed. Hey, if you don't give it up, we won't give you work by a lot of their managers, and that stuff has to stop. That you cannot be threatening people like that and stuff like that. So NAFTA and the TPP are the same thing. And so when you have something like that the government is doing, because obviously the government from here is sleeping with the narco gobierno over there, and that's why people are doing what they're doing and stuff like that. And it's kind of very sad, and so, things have to change and stuff like that. And that's why the boycott against Driscoll's, I'm asking all your people that listen to your radio station or your show, I should say, Nick, to boycott Driscoll's. Don't eat strawberries, don't eat their blackberries and stuff like that, because those companies are just exploiting us to the max. And that's why we have to also boycott Monsanto, because they're providing all the chemicals and stuff like that. And that thing, the Monsanto thing, is coming up in 2 months. Also.
Yeah, and you mentioned the TPP, and this plays into this because the TPP is going to do away with like country of origin labeling and stuff like that. We're not going to know, if we want to go and boycott a product because we think, okay, well, whether it's the Driscoll's company, which is employing a feudalistic labor system in Mexico, or we're talking about like a company like SodaStream that is built on stolen land in Palestine. If we want to boycott these things, well, in the future, if we allow the legislation like the TPP or similar legislation to go through, we're not going to ever know where these things are coming from, and they're not going to have to be labeled, and we're not going to know who owns it or what company. And it's easy for a company, if a company becomes if the consumers get a foul taste for a company in their mouth, well, it's so easy for a company to just change the name. It's basically as simple as just putting a new label on the product, and then you're not going to know, and that's why we have to be very wary of things like the TPP that are going to come in and take away the transparency that we're starting to finally get. We've been fighting for transparency for so long, we're finally starting to get it, and now the TPP is coming in to try to take away from that transparency and stuff. And so, we got to be very wary of that kind of stuff. I don't know if the TPP is going to go through in this election. I think it's too unpopular, and the next president, and I guarantee you, if it's Hillary Clinton and pretty much any of the Republicans, the TPP is going to go through. So we got to be very wary of that and be very careful. And now on the other end of things, with this Brussels thing still on our minds, and then there's been terrorist attacks throughout the weekend. On Easter, a huge attack in Pakistan, which is horrible attack, killed a lot of kids and injured a bunch of children and women and a bunch of innocent people that went down over there. And I want to bring Claire into this conversation, because this whole thing that Trump talks about we just got to ban Muslims from coming into this country. I've made the comparison before. It's basically akin to lighting a hotel on fire and then locking the doors shut, locking the front doors and saying, well, it's their fault for not having a fire extinguisher. If they're burning to death in there, we're not obligated to open these doors. They should have already had fire extinguishers. What's their problem? Even though we set the fire. I mean, Claire, this thing, maybe it pisses me off more than anything else, because I have so many Muslim friends that are the nicest people I know, that have never done anything wrong to anyone, that are now walking down the street and they feel like they're being stared at. They don't feel like they're safe. They feel like they're being persecuted. And then the people on the other side of the world that are being bombed on a regular basis by our foreign policy, and they're like leaving those countries because they're trying to escape the bombs. They're trying to get over here so they can at least live somewhat of a safer life. And now they're here and they're worried that some Trump supporter is going to come burn their house down or throw rocks at them or shoot them while they're walking down the street. I mean,
well, and in a way they should be, because considering what Cruz kind of proposed and then Trump, just rubber stamped, the idea of having police, like local police, go into quote-unquote Muslim neighborhoods and basically hunt down potential terrorists, as if potential terrorists only exist in Muslim neighborhoods in this country, for one thing, and for another, as if that does any good. I mean, Snowden came out and said after the Brussels attacks, and, also in relation to Paris and Boston, that surveillance and this patrolling and these ideas of more police and, tighter strictures, none of this works. None of this prevents anything. The intelligence agencies that could have prevented the attacks in Brussels had all of the information that they needed, including the location of where the attacks were going to take place, and yet nothing happened. So targeting, our fellow citizens as if they, because of whatever religion they practice, somehow they deserve to be targeted, is just absolutely absurd, and it completely misses the point. And on top of all of that, it feeds into Daesh or ISIS or whatever you want to call it. It feeds into the terrorist rhetoric. They want us to be divided, because if we're divided, then we feel resentment, and then we, add to their numbers. I mean, this is just an absurd cycle, and it strikes me as ridiculous that nobody really understands this.
Yeah, and that's why that saying has been circulating, that the terrorists won after 9/11, and all the reaction that was done, the highly reactionary foreign policy that was put in place. I'm not saying that it's totally a product of 9/11, because I'd argue that many of those plans were in place before 9/11, but it was just very convenient after the terrorist attack, or after whatever happened on 9/11. It was like, okay, cool, here's the plan that we got to do. We got to go take over the Middle East, and here's how we're going to do it. And everyone was so afraid of their own shadow that's like, oh, do whatever you want. I mean, pass the Patriot Act, go invade Iraq, even though they had nothing to do with it. Just as long as you're keeping us safe, we don't give a shit what you do. Now we find out later on, especially in the last year or 2 years, with the militarized police state, and then with the Snowden revelations, it's like, oh shit, all this stuff came home and they used it against us. Like, we thought they were using it against terrorism. We thought these MRAPs were going to go protect us overseas. And now we find out, shit, not only are they overseas creating more terrorism with their policies, now they're turning these policies back on the American people, treating us like the enemy. You know what I mean? And so then, we find out that stuff later on. And so that's really bad. And we're creating these refugee crises. NATO, the United States.
We're creating the whole problem. We're driving the refugee crisis. We're driving the xenophobia. We're driving the racism. Our foreign policy, our government's foreign policy, and the allies in the West are driving all of this problem. And if people refuse to buy into this rhetoric and this narrative and actually understood that it is the foreign policy and the bombing campaigns and this militaristic foreign policy, if people understood that, then we would not be in this position. I mean, there was a Muslim woman who was wearing a hijab in a public library, and a police officer basically told her to leave if she wouldn't remove it. And, you know, it's like, it's already here. Like, this fascist policy is coming, and it's already here. It's already starting. And people don't realize how dangerous that is and how much it will come back to bite, you know, themselves in the ass, basically.
Exactly. It's already happening, and Trump is kind of just normalizing the xenophobia. It's like, oh, well, we know that you shouldn't be xenophobic, but like Trump's kind of just normalizing it and letting all these people that are xenophobic, even though they don't exactly know why, they just know that they're afraid. They're like, okay, well, now we can be open about it. And Claire, as you mentioned, this is exactly to the T. This is what ISIS and Al-Qaeda, whatever, any extremist group, this is what they want. They want us to turn on our own neighbors because they look different. Because if enough people turn on their Muslim neighbors, well, I mean, what would you do let's say you practice a certain thing. Let's say you're Christian, or let's just say something very simple. Let's say you have piercings, okay? And because you have piercings, you walk down the street and people look at you highly suspect. And they say, oh my God, that person has piercings. And go back to where you came from, wherever you got that piercing. Like, get back to where you were. Like, after enough time, you're going to start resenting people, right? You're going to start saying, God, these people are so intolerant. They're a bunch of assholes that hate people just because they have piercings. Like, fuck them. Like, I'm going to join up with this group that's saying, you know what, screw all these regular people that don't have piercings. I'm going to retaliate because I'm sick of them being assholes to me. Like, this is the logic that these people, and I guess it's hard to call them people, but that these people are deploying. It's like literally they're demonizing people because of acts of a very, very small, tiny micro minority, and they're demonizing an entire group of people, and that all that's doing is pushing people in the wrong direction. It's pushing them towards the extremism, and that's exactly why you wonder people wonder, like, well, why does ISIS, like, why do terrorist groups bomb other Muslims? Why do terrorist groups bomb, you know, in Muslim countries and stuff? Because they're trying to create this kind of scenario. And us, our politicians, Donald Trump, everyone that follows Donald Trump, Ted Cruz, Hillary Clinton, they're all playing into this shit, and they're making our problem much, much worse. Manny, go ahead.
Yeah, well, you know, we had our brothers and sisters over there too, because obviously at the Trump rally. And one of the reasons, you know, that you start having all these problems too is the cops were there to protect the Trump people. They weren't.
Hey, Manny, sorry to interrupt you, but can you turn up your mic a little bit? We can't hear you that well on this side.
Okay, I said the people, you know, are supposed to be protected by the cops, but I think they were biased. I think they were just protecting the people, the Trump people. And sometimes I wonder if the cops are Donald Trump supporters or Republicans, or they just protect those people and not other people that look different and stuff like that, because that's what was happening in Murrieta. And when I turned around, a cop actually pushed me so hard from the back, so he got mad because I called him a coward and stuff like that. And I mean, I just got in his face and started basically getting rough on him and, you know, stuff like that. And the good thing is that his sergeant was there, and so I kind of reported him at the same time, you know, and he didn't say nothing to me after that, you know, I mean, I just couldn't believe that he actually did that, and he thought he was going to stare me down, and I kept on staring him down, you know. Obviously, that cop doesn't know who Manny Aguilar is, you know what I mean? Yeah,
man, and you know, this is the thing, is you go to these things, and people fall into this groupthink. Like, you know, the people that are there, if you pull them and you get them individually on the street, like, they're probably decent people. You know what I mean? They're probably not, like, extremely hateful, and they're probably not, like, bad people or anything. But you get them into this groupthink mentality. And it's very, very similar to, like, Nazi Germany, where they get riled up, and it's like, oh, my God, like, yeah, it's the Jews that did it. You know what I mean? Claire, go ahead.
That was what I was saying. Like, I went to a Trump rally, too, and, like, being inside, I was trying to be completely neutral. And all of the people, when I was in line to go in, they seemed like, you know, kind of misguided but perfectly rational people. And you get them inside in this groupthink arena, and suddenly everybody is just, they become like, they fall in line with fascism and with xenophobia and with racism and with all of this violent rhetoric. I mean, they like fell in line like clockwork. It was frightening.
Exactly. We got the master DB Schwartz on the line now. I think we had a little tech difficulties at connecting, but he's on the line now. What's up, DB? You there?
Yeah, all I can say is Chinese manufacturing is shit.
There you go, man. Hey, maybe we could circle back to the crouton thing. Jake, I mean, fill us in.
About what?
I'm just kidding, man. So I wanted to circle back around because we're dealing with this issue with us creating the refugee crisis with our foreign policy, right? And we're talking about how Trump he's selling a superficial message of, hey, it's the refugees that are the problem and they're not making us safe, without digging deeper and saying, hey, no, it's actually our and don't get me wrong, Trump, when he came out against the Iraq war and stuff, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. That's awesome. But at the same time, it's like, no, well, let's just ban Muslims and that solves our problem. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth on that issue. But Trump is a bad actor. He's a xenophobe. He's a demagogue, whatever you want to call him.
He's throwing it for Hilly. He's throwing it for her, man. He doesn't want to be president, dude.
That's kind of what it seems like. And I read an article today from one of his former people, and it kind of said that without directly saying it. But DB, as you bring this over to Hillary, and that's the direction I was going here. We've got Trump, who's an unproven warmonger, who has a bunch of, he's got a bunch of sound bites that are bad. But on the other hand, we've got Hillary Clinton on the other side of things, who has already got a lot of blood on her hands. And I want to bring this, and I want to include Manny on this too, is what went on in Honduras. And thanks to some recent revelations coming from Hillary Clinton's emails, we find out that in 2009, Hillary Clinton more or less baptized the military coup that went on in Honduras. And now Honduras as we speak, Honduras is basically the single most violent and least secure places in the entire Western Hemisphere. We're talking about entire Northern and Southern, North and South America. Honduras is now pretty much the worst place to live, and this is a place where Hillary Clinton anointed a military coup back in 2009. And then, all of a sudden, last summer, we saw that there's like, oh my God, where are all these migrants coming from? Why are all these people coming up? And most people are like, oh, where are all these people coming from south of the border? They didn't bother making a distinction whether they were from Mexico or from what country. A bunch of these kids and women that were coming from Central America were coming from Honduras because Hillary Clinton allowed them to run a military coup down there, and they overthrew the government, and now it's become one of the most viral places in the world, the most violent places in the world, and we wonder why people are trying to get out of there. Well, I'll tell you, it's right there. Our foreign policy, we allowed and we anointed a military coup, an overthrow of a democratically elected government. We continued sending them weapons and aid and all that stuff as it went down, as the transition happened. And now the country is completely fucked. And all these people are trying to get out because it's so violent. And we're trying to just build a big wall to keep them out instead of looking at why are they trying to leave? You know what I'm saying? Manny, come on, dude. Give us a little insight about what goes on with why are people trying to leave these countries? It's not just because they're not coming here to say, hey, you know what? I want to go take that guy's job. That's the most superficial shit you could actually think. What's really happening?
Yeah, it's basically it's almost like in Mexico. These governments help the United States take over a lot of land so they can have their cattle grazed, and it puts a lot of people out of their lands and stuff like that. And then they wonder why people come down here, down there in Honduras. That's why a lot of people are talking about right now that's why activist Berta Caceres was killed, because she was talking a lot of stuff about Hillary and how Hillary is and stuff like that, And so it just become completely, supposedly they've done all this in the name of war on drugs and stuff like that, And it's the same thing they did in Libya, and stuff like that, to overthrow Gaddafi because he wanted to create his own currency, but that's a different story, So now we got Nestora. Nestora finally got released. Human rights activist Nestora Salgado. She's going to be touring in the United States, and she's going to be talking about, what the government in Mexico and the United States do together. They sleep with the enemy and stuff like that. And it's like if we go tomorrow and decide to bomb your whole neighborhood, and including where you live there, Nick, well, you got to go somewhere, right? You would become a refugee in the next city or whatever. So.
Exactly, man. Exactly, and so people don't understand what's going on, and what the message that we're being sold is so superficial, and it's like, oh, Hillary Clinton's emails and stuff. And I got into this argument yesterday, and I'm not a religious guy. I don't celebrate Easter. I go and I hang out with my family because that's when they want to go, and everyone gets together, and it's nice because we get to hang out with family. And even though I'm not a Christian or anything like that, it's like, okay, cool. It's Easter, we get to go hang out with family and stuff, and it's great. And I'm sitting here and I'm trying to talk to some of my family members that are Democrats, and they're like, oh, we're voting for Hillary Clinton. I'm like, well, she basically baptized the military coup in Honduras, and it's just like it's so hard to get through to people. They're like, oh no, those are just the Republicans making a big deal out of those emails. I'm like, no, you don't understand. She helped overthrow a country, and now that country is basically ruined. And that's why people are leaving that country and trying to get to the United States. And that's why Donald Trump is getting so much support, because he's saying he's going to build it's like people don't get that all this stuff is connected, man. And that's what we got to get. People need to understand, all this stuff, all of the foreign policy, the trade deals, when we go and we toss governments out and we establish corporate feudalism in Mexico and South America and the Middle East, we take their oil, overthrow the government. There's a reason people are leaving. They're not leaving because they hate their homeland. They're not leaving because they hate their families. They're not leaving because they're cowards. They're leaving because they're trying to survive, man. And people have an instinct to survive. They're going to do what it takes. And if it takes breaking the law to enter a country illegally, they're going to do that because people have an instinct to survive. You know what I'm saying? And people look at this stuff so superficially, and it pisses me off.
And they have a right to do that, Nick, because if the tables turn, I promise you, if our economy implodes, we're going to be invading Canada. We're going to be invading Mexico. People aren't going to stay here through the horrible, painful decline of an empire. I promise you. So all these people that think this thing can't happen to them and that we're some kind of citadel, get your head out of your ass.
Exactly, man. Exactly. When the tables are turned, we're going to be like, well, why are these people being so mean and not letting us enter their country? Well, it's like, oh, dude, you've been doing this to us all these years. Do you really think we got a good taste in our mouth for what you assholes are capable of? You know what I'm saying? So, oh man, it's a big mess, dude. And you know what? This. Go ahead.
People that vote for this is the thing, man. I went to another Bernie thing in Madison, dude, and just because I want to have some hope in this process. If we're not going to play the game anymore, that's fine. We need to go to anarchy and then we'll reset. But I don't think 99% of Americans want that. I don't think 99% of Americans are even capable of making it through that, okay? So this is the reality, dude. Do you want a huge millions and millions and millions of piles of bodies? Because that's what happens when we have revolution. Or do we want to actually just change our system through the system? And I know it seems impossible, but the alternative is sickening, dude. Do you really think they're building drones, building B-2 bombers, building all this shit to take the world over, and when it fails, they're just going to go quietly into the night?
Yeah, that's a great point, man. It's a great point. And revolutions, there are some okay examples of revolution succeeding, but there's also a lot of examples where they don't, and they fail miserably, or they wind up in stalemate, or it's what the true linguistic definition of a revolution, where it's just, hey, you get rid of one type of government, you replace it with another one, and then in a couple years down the line, you're like, shit, we're in the same situation we started in 10 years ago. Why did we why did 1 million people die for this? And now we're back in the same boat.
And 1 million is light, Nick. Think about it. If you're the government and you know that people are about to take you out, you collapse your own grid. That's what's on the way.
Yeah, it's a scary scenario, man, and that's why people. That's why people have it's hard for people to try to figure out and keep hope about what's going on here, because it's a tough spot. And I'm going to be really easy on Bernie Sanders tonight. I'm I know several of our callers on the call are at least in some way okay with Sanders, and I'm, the more and more this election goes on, the more like he's like, okay, he's not nearly as bad as Hillary Clinton, and God, he's not bad as Donald Trump. You know what I'm saying? So I'll keep the gloves on.
I don't
Well,
think
the alternative is shitty, dude. Think about the reality of the alternative. Stop thinking we can go agorist and voluntary overnight. It's not going to happen.
I agree.
You're going to have millions upon millions upon millions of people die. Uncounted amounts, dude. You have no idea.
Americans are too lazy for a revolution unless it's on sale. The only thing we can do is try and unite as many disparate movements as possible. The far left liberals, the far right libertarians, agorists, people who counter the establishment have to join together and form a unified coalition. That's the only way the system can be restructured, and that's what Ralph Nader wants to do. Ralph Nader wants to team up with Ron Paul and form an alliance there, and that's the only way we're going to change the system from the inside. The only way, as long as we stay divided against each other, as long as leftists make fun of right-wing militias, as long as right-wing militias threaten to kill liberals, there's no hope. There's seriously no hope unless we all join together.
Yeah, but I really think that all this division we're at a turning point, and there are a number of experts and people who have watched for decades the political system, and they see what's going on right now, and this really is the death of the two-party system, because whether or not Bernie comes out on top and whether or not Trump comes out on top, this has still proven that the election system does not work. And it's proven that the people are not heard, and there are going to be major changes. I just don't see it happening any other way.
Yeah,
absolutely. I just finished an article today that hopefully will be up tomorrow. But Anonymous just came out with a video called hashtag Op Jill Stein, and Anonymous is now actively working to push for a rise of third parties.
Yeah, very interesting point. I just saw a poll the other day that showed Gary Johnson, which is the one of the Libertarian Party candidates. Now he's polling in double digits against Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. So that's pretty that's pretty encouraging. And I think, Jake, you're onto something here. I think we do need to do more coalition building, and people that may think that they're so different than others. I mean, people that understand there's an issue, I think, can come together. And I'm not talking about, I don't know, I'm not sure that the Donald Trump people are salvageable. I think they've fallen, I think.
No, they are, Nick, because they're against the establishment. It's just they're scared as fuck.
Yeah, and I think we do need to try to attract deeper thinkers, people that actually look underneath a little bit under the rhetoric and try to understand at least a little bit of what's actually going on and stuff. The Donald Trump people, maybe there is hope for them, but at the moment they're just completely they're just reactionaries. They're nothing more than reactionaries, and they're buying into bad rhetoric that's being sold by great salesmen, and I can't blame them.
They can be pushed, the correct way. The Hillaryites are the ones I have the problem with, man.
Yeah, they're the diehard Hillary people are probably the worst. I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true. They are not critically thinking, and some of them are. The family people I was talking with yesterday. They're really smart people, man. They're smart people, but they succumb to this groupthink, back to the groupthink stuff, and unfortunately. People fall into this crap, and the same thing that's going on with Trump. It's groupthink. Maybe we can crack him out of it. I mean, we got to figure out how, though.
I've been talking about it for random conversations as well, and with my parents actually. And I'm of the opinion that there is a generational divide here, which is that there's people on Social Security right now, and there's older people with investments who feel they have skin in the game, and they don't want to see the system collapse because they feel like they'll lose their money. They feel like they've bought into this system, and they don't want to see it change, even though it would be ultimately it would be to their advantage, their children's advantage, their grandchildren. But there's just simply people that are, like you said, they're smart and they know the system is completely screwed up and they know it needs to change, but they're just simply unwilling to make the leap.
But yeah, they don't want to change themselves. And
Right.
there's a great cartoon that I saw, a political cartoon, and it was like a picture of a rally, and it's like who wants change, and like everyone's like raising their hand, and then the guy at the podium was like, who wants to change, and then everyone's like no. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like everyone knows there's something wrong, but the people, especially like you said, the people that are highly dependent on the system, they don't want to change it, because then that means them losing out, or at least potentially losing out on what's going on and everything that they worked hard for. And that's what, that's the really tough issue here, is that there's so many people that really depend on Social Security and all the big safety nets that have been paid for, that they paid into, that have now been, they bankrupted them, and they raided all the money out. But these people paid in, they're expecting something out of it. And so when someone comes along and offering revolutionary ideas, they're scared, because they're like, well, what about us? Like, we paid into all this stuff, and now we're going to get screwed when you young people want to go and kind of, fix it for yourselves. And I kind of look at it like this, and Jake, great angle there. It's kind of like the older people are like the shareholders of this system, and everyone else is like the laborers. We're like the guys, like we want a minimum wage. Like we want something to, if we're going to put all this hard work into this, we want something to show for it. We want a guarantee. And then
we want what the boomers got.
The shareholders are kind of like, well, dude, that cuts out of our bottom line, and that might wreck our company if you guys make too much money, or if you demand too much, too many services for all them taxes that you pay, for all that labor that you do. If we pay you too much, well, we're not going to make any money, and that's the way they look at it. And the older people are like the shareholders of the company, and the younger people are like the laborers, and we're all doing the work and stuff, and we're paying into the Social Security, we're paying into all these safety nets, and the older guys are like the shareholders that are pulling the profits out, and they're on retirement, they're getting all their medical paid for and all that stuff, and we're like, our premiums are $1,500. If I got a toothache, I got to go to the dentist and get a tooth pulled. I still got to pay $1,000. Like, what the hell am I paying into? You know what I mean? And so this is the predicament that we're in here. And you're right, man. It is a generational divide.
Nick, one of the problems this country has is no country trusts this country. I mean, they don't trust this country. And Castro made it very clear that the United States is not trusted. He doesn't trust the United States, because Obama made it look like everything would be okay. He said, forget the past. He said, screw the past. And then Obama accused them of, violating human rights. He said, you're the biggest violator of human rights at Guantanamo Bay. What are you talking about, And so, I mean, that Cuba thing, they're going to be watching the United States very carefully. They don't trust them at all and stuff like that, And,
neither does the millennial generation either.
Yeah, exactly. And Davey said something about the Chinese. Well, unfortunately, down your way, Nick, the Chinese took over the Coronado Hotel. They own it now. So it's just, too bad.
Yeah, they took the hotel.
The great California sell-off. If people wonder why there's water problems, there's chemtrails in the air, and the crops are declining, there's a lot of Chinese millionaires that want California land.
Manny, you made a great point, dude. I mean, think about what Obama went over there, and of course, like we can't hold Obama to the crimes of his predecessors and stuff. But think about the perspective, like, from Cuba, man. It's like, this guy's coming over here, and he's like, oh, look, we overthrew, like, we invaded Cuba. I think we've invaded Cuba, like, 2 or 3 times. We tried to overthrow the government, like, multiple times. I mean, the one that's most well known is the Bay of Pigs and stuff. It's like, you know what? Like, Obama goes over there, he's like, you know what? Forget about all that. We invaded you twice. We tried to overthrow you guys a couple times. Forget about all that stuff. And obviously, I mean, think about this too, man, is that the whole reason, and we talked about looking deeper at these issues and why people act a certain way. Why is there Islamic extremism? Why is there a migration crisis coming out of Latin America? Well, we look deeper underneath the surface at Cuba, and everyone, I would say, like, most of our parents would probably say, oh yeah, Cuba, man, they're this communist, they're extreme, they're crazy, their people aren't free. Well, there's a reason. The reason why they've become so radicalized, just like Iran in many ways, and in Venezuela as well, because we've tried to overthrow them so many times. The people are like the people that are in power, Fidel Castro and the Castro family and all that. They're bureaucrats, and they've got an oligarchy going on too, just like we got here. They're able to say, "Oh, look at America! Look how bad these capitalists are! Look what they've done! They tried to overthrow us 5 times. You got to put all your trust in us. Let us censor your communication. Let us do all this stuff because look how bad they are." And look at the ideology behind it. It's the same exact shit the United States government did after 9/11. Look how bad these Muslim people are. Let us censor. Let us make the NSA. Let us make the Patriot Act because they're so bad. It's the same exact shit. The same thing goes on in Iran. We've tried to topple the government. We've been meddling with them for so long. The CIA has been operating over there. I mean, every couple months there's like a new Iranian nuclear scientist gets assassinated. No one knows who did it. Well, I'll tell you, it's either the CIA or the Israeli intelligence services. There's a reason why these regimes are able to build up so much authoritarian control, because we give them the fodder to do it. You know what I'm saying? And so people need to look at that and understand. It's like, look, if we didn't have an embargo on Cuba for the last 5 decades, they wouldn't be so damn extreme. They wouldn't be so oppressive against their people. But they do it because they're so worried that some CIA operative is going to try to start some revolution at any moment. So they crack down on everybody. And the people that live in the country are okay with it. They let it happen because they don't want to be overthrown by foreign imperialism. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, this is the principle that we need to think about. And when we're going to talk about foreign issues, when we're going to talk about domestic issues, immigration, radical Islam, when we're going to talk about all these things that people are worried about, we need to look deeper at what's causing them, what's giving them this authority, what's giving these countries the ability to radicalize their public or to harden their public or to build an anti-American or anti-Western culture in these countries. Well, it's because we're trying to overly influence them. We're trying to take their resources. We're trying to take their money. We're trying to establish a banking system in their country. We're trying to topple their governments or whatever. I mean, the reason why there's this not crazy, but there's this crazy surge of extremely leftist governments down in Central America, in Honduras, in Guatemala, in down all around Central America. It's because of all the actions that we've done over there for so long, and now, you know, in Honduras, as we were talking about how Hillary Clinton backed the military coup down there, they had a democratically elected leftist government that was over there nationalizing industries and stuff to try to give money and control back to the peasantry. And then they say, oh, you know what? The U.S. said, we can't allow that to happen. Let's let the military coup take place, a right-wing military coup take place, so that we can continue to let our corporations go in there and take all the farming land and take all the products out of that country at a very low cost. You know, and so this is why a lot of this stuff is happening. People aren't paying attention. Instead of paying attention to the real issues going on. And I can't blame people, because first of all, our media won't even cover this shit. I didn't even know there was a military coup in Honduras, and I consider myself a person to be aware of what the hell's going on. I didn't even know there was a military coup in Honduras until the Hillary Clinton email came out. And then I'm like, oh shit, Hillary Clinton backed a military coup in Honduras in 2009? I didn't even know about that. You know what I mean? And I consider myself like well informed. You know, the media doesn't even talk about it. The media didn't say, the U.S. backed a military coup in Honduras. Don't worry about it. You know, they didn't say none of that. They just didn't talk about it. You know, but yet when one of our quote unquote enemies, like Gaddafi in Libya or Assad in Syria, if they do something, it's like, oh my God, it's front page news. It's like, these people killed a couple dozen protesters. We need to go toss over that government. It's like, okay, yeah, that is bad. We should know about that stuff, but when our government goes and overthrows another government, it's like not even news. No one even talks about it. It's like, okay, well, yeah, let's just be quiet about that. There definitely seems to be a concerted effort to suppress certain information while at the same time like highlighting others. You know, and perfect example here is what went on in Brussels. And it's like, oh my God, a bunch of white Europeans were bombed by Muslim people. Like this is really important news. And the same thing went on in Paris. You know, this is really important. But there was a huge attack in Turkey. There was a huge attack just over the weekend in Pakistan. And I don't see many people saying, oh, my God, I can't believe they bombed a bunch of children. Well, because the regime in Pakistan is I mean,
they're completely in bed, dude.
I don't want to go
completely in bed.
I don't want to go too deep down this rabbit hole here. We got some other stuff to talk about. Let's talk about some censorship stuff because there's a great study. I guess it's not great, but it's very informative. First, let's talk about some actual censorship that's affecting us at the Anti-Media. Claire, you wanted to talk about this because you've been experiencing it greatly over the last few days, over the weekend. Tell us about what you're experiencing and what you think it's caused by.
I would like to say that I think that there is nothing worse. There is no slippier slope than censorship. And it's censorship of each other that really kind of drives the whole issue. When, a lot of people use Facebook kind of just for social media purposes, but a lot of us use it for work. And when people get, a little offended by something and report it as abusive content or whatever it is they're reporting it as, they don't realize how many repercussions there are from what it is they're doing. They don't realize that eventually will come back to bite them as well. When you censor somebody else for something that you are uncomfortable with, instead of just, refreshing the page or moving on to another post or scrolling past it or choosing something else or blocking the person even, when you choose to actually report it, what you are doing is playing into the government's narrative and saying it is okay that we say that freedom of speech is not acceptable anymore. And that's ridiculous and absurd. And it hinders everything. It hinders the narrative. It hinders open discussion. It hinders learning. It hinders knowledge. It hinders the free flow of information. And it hinders everything that we are supposed to stand for.
Yeah, and it's so blatant. So first I want to talk about the overt censorship stuff. And I want to go back to Paris and the Charlie Hebdo thing and then the following, the other Paris terrorist attacks. So, right after Charlie Hebdo, it's they had rallies in the streets to protect free speech. And it's you know what? We're going to protect controversial speech, as long as they're talking badly about Muslims and it's Charlie Hebdo and they're going to say bad stuff and make fun of the Quran and make fun of Islam and stuff. It's yeah, you know what? We need to stand for that kind of controversial speech. And you know what? Honestly, I'm all for it. You know what? I don't think people, if you insult someone's religion and they want to kill you over it, well, then that's their problem. You know what I'm saying? I'll sit here and I'll insult everyone's religion. And if you want to kill me for it, that's your problem. And so I supported that. It's you know what? Yeah. You know what? We should respect Charlie Hebdo. We should respect their freedom to criticize Islam if they want to. And then the Paris terror attacks come along and it's all of a sudden it's oh, Paris, we're free, we love, we're this, that, and then the government's you know what, we need to block websites, we need to censor free speech, we need to do this, we need to do that, because it's for your protection. You know what I mean? It's okay if we make it unsafe for Muslims around here and stuff, but man, when white people start feeling like they're being targeted, it's we gotta, really go in and crack down, and for a time, Claire, we tested, the Anti-Media was actually blocked in Paris for a short time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was. And
it's
in
unblocked
Turkey
now.
as well.
Yeah, and it's unblocked now as far as I know. I haven't checked recently, but there was a time when we were being censored in Paris, even though only months before that they were in the streets rallying because they love free speech so much. It's wait, where's the connection here? I thought you guys were all for free speech, and then all of a sudden when it's criticizing your government or your reaction to the terror attacks, it's all of a sudden it's oh, well, we can't let that be spread around. And I'm sitting here right now on a Facebook account by the name of Nicholas Barnabas, which is not my real name. And this is my fourth. I have 4 Facebook accounts because my other 3 are banned. My other 3 accounts are banned because a bunch of people can't take a little criticism. And I hate this. And as crazy as it sounds, because all these people in the Trump crowd are oh, these damn liberals, they're so intolerant. They can't take a little controversial speech. They can't, they get mad when we talk about Muslims or about minorities and about this and that. It's the last 3 times I've been banned was because I was criticizing Donald Trump and his supporters are reporting our content. It like you said, Claire, it's a slippery slope. If it's if we're gonna say, well, we can't tolerate some speech. well, it's just a matter of time until your speech isn't going to be tolerated either. And that's where we have to really look in the mirror and say, hey, look, are we gonna be a bunch of whining brats and say, oh, well, I don't want my feelings challenged and I don't want my worldview to be challenged? Or are we going to say, look, you know what? People can say what they want, and if I can deal with it. And because we live in a world that values free speech, and even incendiary speech, even controversial speech, even stuff that's offensive, like purposely. I mean, that stuff, we need to be able to accept that stuff if we want to be able to have our own ability to, claim that same right. And that notion is slipping quickly in Western culture, in quote unquote Western democracies. It's pretty much long gone in Europe. It's going away quickly. It's eroding quickly in England, in Britain, in the UK, in France. It's going away now in Brussels. You're about to see it happen in Brussels. It already happened in the United States. I mean,
Nick, I think what people need to get, because a lot of people don't have historical context, is the Bretton Woods Agreement, free lunch, is over. You need to understand that the West now has only two options: collapse or nuclear war, because everybody else has parity militarily with us where it counts, which is nukes. So that whole advantage we had from 45 to 52 before the Soviet Union developed theirs, it's long gone. It's long gone. The only thing left is sheer madness.
Madness and technology, man. That's why these guys got all these drones and all this crap going.
But it doesn't matter. One EMP sends us back to the Dark Ages, and they all know it.
Yeah, and the prospects aren't bright for the way out for the ruling class, man. I think people are onto them, and that's why I was having this. I had Dan Sanchez over on Friday, and we had this great conversation. And he's one of our journalists at the Anti-Media, and he's probably one of the most brilliant thinkers I know. And we were talking about the gatekeeping and stuff, and for so long, information was so tightly controlled because it was like, well, do you got enough money to start your own newspaper, or do you got enough money to have your own TV channel? If not, your voice is pretty much not going to be heard. Your opinions aren't going to get out there. And now thanks to the internet, we've cracked that code a little bit. To where it's like, okay, well now people can like post a blog or a video. There's this crazy awesome video by actually Nick Cannon of all people that we're going to be covering. We're going to be publishing tomorrow in the Anti-Media. I encourage everyone to see it. I'm not going to give it away, but let's just say it's a song that everyone needs to listen to. We're going to be posting that tomorrow. But like you could just upload stuff and people can see it. But now we got this new era of gatekeepers, and obviously here with the Anti-Media and our staff, with Claire and with me. And everyone else on the Anti-Media staff on Facebook are dealing with this corporate censorship, and it's really bad. I mean, Claire, you had to create an alternative account. I'm on my fourth one. I mean, it's only a matter of time before the rest of us have to deal with that too.
There's nothing more valuable in a free society than the freedom to offend. If you are offended by something in this day and age of electronic information, you can scroll past it. If you're offended, you do not have to look at it. It is not in your face. Your eyes are not like pried open. You can scroll past it. So this censorship by peers is unacceptable.
Yeah, and so this study I wanted to talk about, it was published in Journalism and Mass Communication Quarterly, which is some kind of journal or something. But it talks about the effects of mass surveillance and how it's causing us to self-censor. And this is actually one of the things that Snowden, and I you got to give it to Snowden for having so much foresight on this stuff. And this is one of the main things that he said is like, you know what, like the biggest problem with this censorship is how it chills free speech. It makes people self-censor because they don't want to cause alarm or cause alert or be put on a damn terrorist watch list or a no-fly list or whatever. And I've joked recently, it hasn't happened yet, but I've joked that like, shit, hopefully I don't end up on a no-fly list one day because I say some unpopular opinion. But what this study found, and this just came out today, actually. I think the study was done. It was done over a period of time, but it just started getting some traction today. And what it found is that with enough surveillance out there, the government doesn't even have to censor people. The people are censoring themselves at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm shut out of Facebook not because the government came in and said, hey, you know what? Like, we got to take this guy from the anti-media and we got to shut him down because he's causing us problems. And I wish that were the case, because I wish we were causing that many issues for the government, but it's not. It's these people that are so afraid of other opinions that are censoring us. The public is self-censoring itself.
They need a safe space, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, shit. Well, you know what? We're coming to the end of the show. I'm glad everybody tuned in. Thank you to the whole panel for calling in tonight.
Didn't get to the calls tonight. Yo, here we go through the stereo.